little walk, I think," the newly regenerated doctor said as he stepped off into the world. This, of course, was the first time his new eyes had seen it, but he couldn't have picked a better spot to start with. A luscious green field full of flowers of all varieties. At least he thought so, given that the only light illuminating the landscape came from the moon and stars above. Soon, he came to the edge of a cliff and stared off at the rolling waves below. He pondered for a while. About nothing in particular, just stood at the edge of the cliff top and daydreamed. Or rather, night dreamed, in this case. Soon after, he snapped out of his trance and decided to move along. After all, it was bloody cold. He made his way back to his ever-faithful, everlasting travelling companion, his home, his TARDIS. He slid his key into the lock, turning it and opening the doors, stepping inside. He crossed the console room, sitting in a chair just across from the doors. He gazed around at the console room. Oh, this place needs a doing up too, I reckon. Not quite to my taste anymore. After a while of silent contemplation, he drifted off to sleep. The soundest sleep he'd had in a very long time, perhaps even since he was a boy. And with that, the room fell almost silent, save for the gentle hum of the machine's inner workings. The doctor awoke with a start. The room around him suddenly pitch black and deathly silent. "Who's there?" The doctor shouted into the void. "Failure," a mysterious voice called out. "Who is that? How did you get in here?" The doctor questioned as panic began to nestle itself into his mind. "I know what you did. You're a coward. You neglected your duties, and now they all suffer. Thanks to you." The voice continued. Suddenly, the console room sprung back into life, momentarily blinding the doctor. As his eyes adjusted, he realised that the room was bathed in a foreboding red light, filling him with a deep sense of unexplainable dread, sickness almost. The cloister bell tolled, the ship sounding almost in pain, calling out like an injured hiker, lost in the middle of nowhere, screaming out for help, for nobody to hear. Suddenly, a whisper comes from behind him, causing the doctor to whip around in terror, only to find nobody there. Another voice calls for him, and another, and another. As the voices grew in number, the vast room began to shrink, gradually getting smaller and smaller, the doctor crouching down in fear, clasping his hands over his ears like they'd been welded to the sides of his head. The voices grew, and the room shrank and shrank. The doctor cried out, in the hopes that all of this was just a bad dream. No! 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 As the doctor cried out, the voices stopped, replaced in an instant by the sound of waves crashing against the rocks below. He opened his eyes to find himself back at the cliff top, safe and sound. Not a moment had passed. He stood up, gazing back out over the edge, tears in his eyes. His mind raced. What just happened? What on earth caused this? The first thought he could properly pick out was his classic knee-jerk response of overwhelming curiosity. He yearned to get to the bottom of what just happened, and to find the force that put him through that nightmare, that which felt like an eternity. He prepared to go and find out, but just then, that same feeling of sickening dread washed over him. No, he thought, I can't do that again. After all, some mysteries are best left unsolved. He set off back towards his TARDIS, focusing on his surroundings to keep his mind off of the horror that he'd just been through. The chirping of crickets, the tweeting and chatter of nocturnal birds, the galloping? Did he hear that right? Something was behind him, galloping towards him. Before he had time to react, whatever that creature was collided with him, pummeling him to the ground, trampling him, twisting up and breaking his brand new body, and just as quickly as it arrived, it was gone, with a strange, neighing, roaring noise. The doctor began to drift out of consciousness as his body leaked blood into the soil beneath him. His face and hands, or what was left of them anyway, began to glow. Golden energy seeped from his lifeless body, resetting his bones and healing his wounds. Thank God he was still within the first 15 hours. Just as he passed out completely, he managed a final thought. I'm gonna need some new clothes when I wake up.